Welcome to our reading section of the Marxist perspective. And this couldn't have worked out better. I was worried that it'd take me some time to find what I was going to read here because I couldn't quite remember where it was, even though I've read this book probably 20 times. It's The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. And Mr. Sinclair aimed for the heart of the American people, and they say he hit the stomach with his horrific descriptors and science fiction-like descriptors of the meat packing and butchering industries in the Chicago stockyards circa 1904 to 1907. And he did his research. It's a lot of very true examples in here. So I would say read this. I read this as a very young man, about 14, I think was the first time I read this. And it immediately set me on the path of my belief system. And one of the most impactful parts, like a miracle, Baruch Hashem, I opened right to the part, and I'm going to read it. So this is the tenor of the book. This is a man speaking to the main character, Hurgis, a humble and sadly ignorant young man who believed too much in a corrupt system and lost everything because of it. But this is what uplifts him. These are the seeds of life given to him. So this man's speaking, and he finally hears him for the first time. He says, you listen to these things, the man was saying, and you say, yes, they are true, but they have been that way always. Or you say, maybe it will come and not in your time. It will not help me, and so you return to your daily round of toil. You go back to be ground up for profits in the worldwide mill of economic might, to toil long hours for another advantage, to live in mean and squalid homes, to work in dangerous and unhealthful places, to wrestle with the specter of hunger and privation, to take your chance of accident, disease, and death, and each day the struggle become fiercer, the pace more cruel, and each day you have to toil a little further, to feel the iron hand of circumstance close a little tighter. Months pass, maybe years, and then you know you come again, and again I am here to plead with you, to know if want and misery have yet done their work with you, if injustice and oppression have yet opened your eyes. I shall be waiting. There's nothing else but I can do. There's no wilderness where I can hide from these things. There is no haven where I can escape them. Though I travel to the ends of the earth, I find the same accursed system. I find that all the fair and noble impulses of humanity, the dreams of poets and the agonies of martyrs are shackled and bound in the service of organized and predatory greed. And therefore I cannot rest. I cannot be silent, therefore I cast aside comfort and happiness, health and good repute, and go out into the world and cry out the pain of my spirit. Therefore I am not to be silenced by poverty, sickness, not by hatred or obloquy, by threat or ridicule, not by prison nor persecution. If they should come, not by any power that is upon the earth or above the earth, that was or is or ever can be created. If I fail tonight, I can only try tomorrow. I knowing that the fault must be mine, that if once the vision of my soul were spoken upon earth, if once the anguish of its defeat were uttered in human speech, it would break the stoutest barrier of prejudice. It would shake the most sluggish soul to action. It would abash the most cynical, would terrify the most selfish, and the voice of mockery would be silenced, and fraud and falsehood would slink back into their dens, and the truth would stand forth alone. For I speak with the voice of the millions who are voiceless, of them that are oppressed and have no comforter, of the disinherited of life for whom there is no respite and no deliverance, to whom the world is a prison, a dungeon of torture and a tomb, with the voice of the little child who toils tonight in a southern cotton mill, staggering with exhaustion, numb with agony, knowing no hope but the grave, of the mother who sews by candlelight, atonement garret, weary weeping, smitten with the mortal hunger of her babies, of the man who lies upon a bed of rags, wrestling in his last sickness and leaving his loved ones to perish, of the young girl who somewhere at this moment is walking the streets of this horrible city, beaten and starving, and making her choice between the brothel and the lake, with the voice of those wherever they may be, who are caught beneath the wheels of the juggernaut of greed, with the voice of humanity calling for deliverance of the everlasting soul of man, arising from the dust and breaking its way out of its prison, rending the bands of oppression and ignorance, groping its way to the light. The speaker pauses. There's an instant while men catch their breaths, and then like a single sound there came a cry from the 1,000 people. Through it all, Jurgis sat still, motionless and rigid, his eyes fixed upon the speaker. He was trembling, smitten with wonder. Suddenly the man raised his hands. Silence fell. He began with, "Again, I plead with you," he said, "whoever you may be, provided that you care about the truth. But most of all, I plead with working men, to those whom the evils I portray, not mere matters of sentiment to be dallied and toyed with, and then perhaps put aside and forgotten, to whom they are the grim and relentless realities of the daily grind, the chains upon their limbs and the lash upon their backs, the iron in their souls, to you working men and women, to you the toilers who have made this land and have no voice in its councils, to you whose lot it is to sow what others may reap, to labor and obey and ask no more than the wages of a beast of burden. The food, the shelter to keep you alive from day to day. It is you that I come with my message of salvation. It is to you that I appeal. I know how much it is to ask of you. I know, for I've been in your place. I've lived your life. And there's no man before me here tonight who knows it better. I've known what it is to be a street waif, a bootblack, living upon a crust of bread and sleeping in cellar stairways and under empty wagons. I've known what it is to dream and dare, to aspire to dream mighty dreams and to see them perish, to see all the fair flowers of my spirit trampled into the mire by the wild beast powers of life. I know what is the price that a working man pays for knowledge. I have paid it with food and sleep, with agony of body and mind, with health of spirit and soul, almost with life itself. And so when I come to you with a story of hope and freedom, with a vision of a new earth to be created, of a new labor to be dared, I am not surprised that I find you sordid and material, sluggish and incredulous. That I do not despair is because I know also the forces that are driving behind you, because I know the raging lash of poverty, the sting of contempt and mastership, the insolence of office and the spurns, because I feel that there in the crowd that has come to me tonight, no matter how many may be dull and heedless, no matter how many may have come out of idle curiosity or in order to ridicule me, here will be some one man or woman whom pain and suffering have made desperate, whom some chance vision of wrong and horror has startled and shocked into attention. And to him my words will come like a sudden flash of lightning to one who travels in darkness, revealing the way before him, the perils and the obstacles, solving all problems, making all difficulties clear. The scales will fall from his eyes. The shackles will be torn from his limbs. He will leap up with a cry of thankfulness. He will stride forth a free man at last, a man delivered from his self-created slavery, a man who will never more be trapped, whom no blandishment can cajole, whom no threats will frighten, whom from tonight on will move forward and not backward, who will study, understand, who will gird on his sword and take his place in the army of his comrades and brothers, who will carry the good tidings to others, if I have carried them to him, the priceless gift of liberty, the light that is neither mine nor his, but the heritage of the soul of working, of men, women. Comrades, open your eyes and look about you. You have lived so long in the toil and heat that your senses have dulled, your souls are numbed, but realize once in your lives, this world in which you dwell, tear off the rags of its customs and conventions. Behold as it is, for its hideous nakedness. Realize it. Realize that out upon the plains of Manchuria tonight, two hostile armies are facing each other. That now, while we stand here, 1,000,000 human beings may be hurled at each other's throats, striving with the fury of maniacs to tear each other to pieces. And this in the 20th century, 1900 years since the Prince of Peace was born on earth, 1900 years that his words have been preached as divine. And here two armies of men are rending and tearing each other like wild beasts of the forest. Philosophers have reasoned, prophets have denounced, poets have wept and pleaded, and still the countless hideous monster roams at large. We have schools and colleges, newspapers, books. We have searched the heavens and the earth. We've weighed and probed and reasoned, and all to equip men to destroy each other. We call it war and pass it by, but do not put me off with platitudes and conventions. Come with me and realize it. See the bodies of men pierced by bullets, blown into pieces by bursting shells. Hear the crunching of the bayonet plunged into human flesh. Hear the groans and shrieks of agony, the faces of men crazed crazed by pain and turned into fiends by fury and hate. Put your hand upon that piece of flesh, hot and quivering just now. It was part of a man. The blood is still steaming, driven by a human heart. God! And this goes on. It is systematic, organized, premeditated. And we know it, read of it, take it for granted. Our papers tell of it, and the presses are not stopped. Our churches know of it and do not close their doors. The people behold it and do not rise up in horror and revolution. Or perhaps Manchuria is too far away for you to come home with me then. Come here to Chicago. Here in this city tonight, 10,000 men are shut up in foul pens and driven by hunger to sell their bodies to live. And we know it. We make a jest, and these women are made in the image of your mothers. They're made to be your sisters, your daughters, the child whom you left at home tonight, whose laughing eyes shall greet you in the morning. And tonight, confronting the terror, the awful winter, tonight in Chicago, there are 100,000 children wearing out their strength, blasting their lives in an effort to earn their bread. There are 100,000 mothers who are living in misery and squalor, struggling to earn enough to feed little ones. 100,000 old people cast off and helpless, waiting for death to take them from their torments. There are 1 million people, men, women, and children, who share the curse of the wage slave, who toil every hour under capitalism. They can stand and see for just enough to keep them alive, who are condemned still to the end of their lives, to monotony, to weariness, to hunger and misery, to heat and cold, to dirt, to disease, to ignorance and drunkenness and vice. And then turn over the page with me, friends. Gaze upon the other side of the picture. There are 1,000, maybe 4, maybe 2. Who are the masters of these slaves, who own their toil. They do nothing to earn what they receive. They do not even have to ask for it. It comes to them by itself. Their only care is to dispose of it as they please. They live in palaces. They riot and rot in luxury, in extravagance such as no word can describe, as make the images such as no word can describe. It makes the imagination reel and stagger, makes the soul grow sick and faint. They spend hundreds for a pair of shoes, a handkerchief, a garter, millions for horses, automobiles, yachts, shiny rocks, palaces, banquets, things which fit to bedeck their bodies. Their life is a contest among themselves for supremacy and ostentation and recklessness in the destroying of good, useful, necessary things, in the wasting of the labor and the lives of their fellow creatures, the toil, the anguish of the nations, the sweat, the tears, the blood of the human race. It is all theirs. It comes to them just as all the springs pour into streamlets, and the streamlets to rivers, and the rivers to the ocean. So automatically, inevitably, all the wealth of society comes to them. The farmer tills the soil, the miner digs the earth, the weaver tends the loom, the mason carves the stone, the clever man invents, the shrewd man directs, the wise man studies, inspired men sing, and all the result, the products, the labors, the brain of muscle are gathered into one stupendous stream and poured into their laps. They devour like fierce wolves. They rend and tear the whole labor of this world of lies at their mercy. The whole power of mankind belongs to them, forever beyond recall. Do what it can, strive as it will. Humanity lives for them and dies for them. They own not merely the labor of society, they bought the governments. And everywhere they've used their raped and stolen power to entrench themselves in their privileges, to dig wider and deeper into channels through which the river of profit flows to them. And you, working men, working women, you've been brought up to it. You plod on like beasts of burden, thinking only of the day and its pain. Yet is there a man among you who can believe that such a system shall continue forever? Is there a man here in this audience tonight so hardened and debased that he dare rise up before me and say that he believes it can continue forever? That the product of the labor of society, the means of existence in the human race, will always belong to them, these parasites, to be spent for the gratification and vanity and lust? To be spent for every purpose at their disposal and will, whatever, that somehow, somewhere, the labor of humanity will not belong to humanity, to be the purpose of humanity and controlled by the will of humanity? If this is to ever be, how is it to be? What power is there and what will bring it? Will it be the task of your masters, do you think? Will they write the charter of your liberties? Will they forge you the sword of your deliverance? Will they marshal you, the army, and lead it to the fray? Will their wealth be spent for the purpose? Will they build colleges and churches to teach you? Will they print papers to herald your progress and organize political parties to guide and carry on the struggle? Can you not see the task is yours and yours alone? Yours to resolve, yours to execute, that if ever it is carried out, it will be the face of every obstacle that wealth and mastership can oppose, in the face of ridicule and slander and hatred and persecution, of the bludgeon and the jail. It will be by the power of your naked bosoms, opposed to the rage of oppression, by the grim and bitter teaching of blind and merciless affliction, by the painful gropings of an untutored mind, by the feeble stammerings of an uncultured voice, by the sad and lonely hunger of the spirit, by seeking, striving, and yearning, by heartache and despairing, by agony and sweat of blood. It will be by money paid for with hunger, by knowledge stolen from sleep, by thought communicated under the shadow of the gallows. It will be a moment, a movement, beginning in the far-off past, a thing obscure and unhonored, a thing easy to ridicule, easy to despise, a thing unlovely, wearing the aspect of vengeance and hate. But to you, the working people, the wage slaves, calling with a voice insistent, imperious, with a voice that cannot escape. Wherever upon the earth you may be, with the voice of all your wrongs, with the voice of all your desire, with the voice of your duty and your hope of everything in the world that is worthwhile to you, the voice of the poor, demanding that poverty shall cease, the voice of the oppressed, pronouncing the doom of oppression, the voice of power wrought out of suffering, of resolution crushed out of weakness, of joy and courage, born in the hopeless pit of anguish and despair. The voice of labor, despised and outraged, be a mighty giant lying prostrate, mountainous, colossal, but blinded, bound, and ignorant of its strength. And now, dream of resistance haunts him. Hope battling with fear until suddenly he stirs and a fetter snaps and a thrill shoots through him to the farthest ends of his huge body. And in a flash, the dream becomes an act. He lifts himself and the bands are shattered. The burdens roll off him. He springs to his feet. He shouts to his newborn exultation. Our speaker's voice breaks suddenly with the stress of his feeling. He stood with arms outstretched. Out above him, with the power of his vision, seemed to lift him from the floor. The audience came to its feet with a yell. Men waved their arms. Laughing aloud in excitement, Jurgis was with them. He was shouting to tear his throat out, shouting because he could not help it, because the stress of his feeling was more than he could bear. It was not merely the man's words, the torrent of his eloquence. It was his presence. It was his voice, a voice with strange intonations that rang through the chambers of the soul, like the clangings of a bell, that shook him and startled him with sudden fright, with a sense of things not of this earth, of mysteries never spoken before, of presences of awe and terror. There was an unfolding of vistas before him, a breaking of the ground beneath him, an upheaval, a stirring, a trembling, felt himself suddenly a mere man no longer. There were powers with him undreamed. There were demon forces contending long-age wonders struggling to be born. And he sat oppressed with pain and joy, while a tingling stole down into his fingertips, and his breath came hard and fast. The sentences of this man were to Jurgis like the crashing of thunder in his soul. A flood of emotion surges up in him. All his hopes and longings, his old grief and rages and despair, all that he had ever felt in his whole life seemed to come back to him at once, and with one new emotion hardly to be described. That he should have suffered such oppressions and such horrors was bad enough, but should he have been crushed and beaten by them? That should he have submitted and forgotten and lived in peace? Truly was a thing not to be put into words. A thing not to be borne by a human creature, a thing of terror and madness. What, asks the prophet, is the murder of them that kill the body to the murder of them that kill the soul? And Jurgis was a man whose soul had been murdered and had ceased to hope and to struggle and had made terms with degradation and despair. And now suddenly, in one awful convulsion, the black and hideous fact was made plain. There was a failing, a falling in all of his pillars of his soul. The sky seemed to split above him. He stood there and clenched his hands, praised. His eyes bloodshot and the veins standing out purple in his face, roaring in a voice of a wild beast, frantic, incoherent, maniacal, and when he could shout no more, he stood still there, gasping, and whispered hoarsely to himself, "By God, by God, by God." And that right there is food for the soul. Righteous as the pages of the Torah, righteous as any religious document I've ever studied, any speech, and it's a work of fiction that carries a grim reality. So this is the first of these, and I really would hope you would read this. Do not read the abridged version. It's not near as good. So thanks again for joining me, and you guys stay safe and be good to one another. And just remember, we all have the beating of the heart. What do all organisms share in common? We eat, we process food, we make waste, right?